Hello, and welcome to another Tuesday afternoon program here with the Genealogy Center. We are glad that you're here today, and we're looking forward to today's program, which will talk about genealogy resources at the Kansas State Archives. Our speaker is Lauren Gray, and she's the head of reference with the Kansas Historical Society and State Archives, and previously she worked with the Museum of New Mexico Photo Archives and the Fray, Angélico Chávez History Library in Santa Fe, New Mexico. An avid history buff, Lauren earned her master's in early U.S. history from the University of New Mexico and her bachelor's in creative writing from the College of Santa Fe. So we are excited to have her here today, and I'll go ahead and let her get started here.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Kate. And thank you for having me in this wonderful program. I am just astounded at the number of places that are represented in the chat all across the country, Texas, some Kansas people here, so welcome. All right, so my name is Lauren Gray. I am the head of reference with the Kansas Historical Society State Archives, or at least I will be until the end of next month. I am actually transferring out to the Massachusetts Historical Society, so I'm looking forward to that big adventure. And I'm trying to minimize that. There we go. And it's going to be amazing. But I'm here today to talk about genealogy resources at the Kansas State Archives. And I'm going to leave a lot of room for Q&A at the end so that everyone can have a chance to kind of reach out to me. Let me know if you have any questions. I find it's most helpful for people to, while they have, someone from the organization there, that they can ask them specific questions. So I'm happy to answer anything you throw at me. And if I don't know the answer, I can hopefully help you find it. So moving on. Like I said, I am with the Kansas Historical Society. We were founded in 1875 by Kansas newspapers and publishers who wanted to preserve the history of the state after the Civil War, especially considering Kansas's important role in the Civil War and leading up to it with Bleeding Kansas. So on the screen here, you have a photo of both our research room and the state archives. And it is a beautiful building on the west edge of Topeka. So if you are local or you are passing through, please feel free to stop and say hello. We do hold regular research hours. We are open Tuesday to Friday, 9 to noon and 1 to 4. And we are also open the last Saturday of the month from 9 to noon. So plenty of opportunity to come in and dive into your family's history. We are a diverse group out here at the State Archives. We, like I said, are part of the Kansas Historical Society. There are 5 different divisions represented at the Historical Society. We have the Archaeology Division, the Kansas Museum of History, Cultural Resources, including our State Historic Preservation Office, and many others. So we were founded, as I said, in 1875. On the screen here is a picture of Zoo Adams. Her real name was Abzuga Adams. I absolutely love that. And we do hold her diaries and some of her correspondence here as well. But she was one of our early founders, or the daughter of one of our founders. And you can see just a few years later that we have a much larger staff to work at your friendly state archives. We have over 7 miles of material in the state archives. Much of that has to do with genealogy. And keep in mind that started from a bookshelf on a corner of the state auditor's office. So we have grown considerably in our short 100 and some odd years. And we have more than 50,000 reels of microfilm, over 25,000 maps, 500,000 photographs. And our mission as the State Archives, which we became the official trustee of the state's history in 1879, is to collect, embody, arrange, and preserve a library of books, maps, charts, manuscripts, papers, paintings, statuary, and other materials illustrative of the history and antiquity of the state. So all of that is a lot of fancy words to say, if your ancestor passed through Kansas, chances are that they will pop up somewhere in the state archives. So please reach out to us or go online to look at some of our resources and do a little digging into your family history. So let's move on here. Here's a brief overview of some of the things that I'm going to talk about. I did see a question pop up in the chat asking if we had a handout for this session. We do not have a handout. I didn't put one together because most of our material for genealogy resource is available in some form online through our website. That's www.kshs.org. And there'll be a link, I believe, at the end of the presentation for you to jot down. And I'm also happy at the end to put any links in the chat. So like I said, I'm going to be talking about some online resources at the State Archives. We have tried to promote and build a website that is both informative and interactive for you as the researcher, so that you can be in charge of your own research, so that you feel empowered to go into our sources online and do your own research to find your family history. Of course, we have so many things that not everything can be online, but we do have a lot of guides and tools and indices to help you do your search. So I'll talk about a few of those today. I'm also going to talk about a few of our in-person resources. Obviously, we have people here from all over the United States, I think. So if you're not able to come in person, I can give you the contact information at the end of the chat for any of our reference librarians, our research desk, that you can reach out and we can help you connect with those resources. I'm also going to talk a little bit about house history research, because that's one of the, I think, overlooked parts of genealogy research. You don't normally think of maybe deeds or bills of sale as being good tools for genealogy, but they absolutely are, and we do hold some of that here at the State Archives. I'm going to talk a little bit about local history resources, a little bit about applying your research, and some fun tips and tricks. Now, I should preface this by saying I am not a genealogist by trade. I am a librarian. So that means even if I don't know the answer, hopefully I can help you find the answer. So let's get started. I'm gonna take a quick sip here. So this is a picture of our research room again. Genealogy resources at the State Archives. This is by no means all-inclusive, but it gives you a good overview and a general sense of what you might be able to encounter when you research with us. I'm going to talk about vital records, newspapers, military records, including Civil War, World War I. We have prisoner files from the state penitentiary, railroad records, government records, Secretary of State corporation records, which are basically business filings, silver books provided by the Mayflower Genealogy Society, and much more. So I hope that whets your appetite. And I have to apologize, I'm not looking at my notes while I do this. So hopefully I'm going to cover everything. But we have in our collections, in our 7 miles of material, we have our printed materials or published materials, and those include county histories, including like centennials of different counties. Here's a trivia fact for you. There are 105 counties in Kansas. Some of them have changed names over the time, so be aware of that when you are researching. For instance, after the Civil War, they renamed the county of Davis to Geary County. So that was obviously reflecting Jefferson Davis, and they renamed it to Governor Geary. We also have town histories in our published materials. We have business histories, newspaper clipping volumes, compiled cemetery inscriptions, vital record materials. I'm going to talk a little bit more about those in a second. We have indices for anything and everything, plat maps, tract books. We have materials about Masons, the Rebeccas, the female branch of that. We have histories on different ethnic groups in Kansas, and we are trying to actively collect still to bring in material that is reflective of the diversity of the state. So Native American histories, African American histories, we're trying to be as diverse in our holdings as possible. And one of the really interesting things that you'll find at the Kansas Historical Society is that we actually still use card catalogs to some extent. So while we have an online catalog, which I'll talk about here in a second, if you want to get the full experience, you definitely need to address what's in the card catalogs as well. Those physical drawers of cards you probably haven't seen since grade school. That's when it's important to come in or contact one of our researchers to access those. And I should say, donations are very important for what we do. Like I said, we are not a static collection. We are continually collecting items that speak to the history of the state, and as well as being a state archives, which means we're, required to take in certain non-current government records. We are always looking for manuscript material like diaries, letters, photographs. That's what helps us grow and what helps us reflect the history and the stories of the people who have lived here and who do currently live here. So if you have any ideas about something you might want to donate that's related to Kansas history, please reach out to me after this talk. My email will be at the end. All right. Let's get off the screen. You've been looking at it for a while. All right, so our online genealogy resources, how are we doing on time? Our online genealogy resources. So like I said, no handout because the bulk of our genealogy material, or at least the method of discovering what we have, is available online. So if you go to www.kshs.org or www.kansasmemory.org, you will encounter a wealth of genealogy material. You'll see here on the screen is a screen capture of kshs.org. That's the homepage for the agency. And you'll see we have genealogy indexes on there, and you can access those through the research tab. I don't know if you can see my mouse highlighting it here, but the research tab here at the top, go to genealogy indexes. You can find places, newspapers, county records. You can search by name. Obviously, like I said, it's not all inclusive, but it is a good place to start. Another thing I wanted to focus on is the partnership that we have with ancestry.com and their subsidiary newspapers.com. These are wonderful resources. If you are a Kansas resident, you can access ancestry.com for free through our website. And if you are a Kansas resident, you can access newspapers.com for free through our website, although I believe everything that we have online at newspapers.com prior to 1923 is opened up for everyone now. So that is a wonderful tool for doing research. Newspapers obviously hold birth announcements, death announcements, land sales, gossip pages, anything and everything. We have one of the largest collections of Kansas newspapers in the world because we were founded by Kansas newspapers, newspapermen and editors. They recognized the need to preserve the history of the state, and the way they chose to do it was through collecting early newspapers. So we have, for instance, over 9 million pages of newspapers available online on newspapers.com. And like I said, it does stop at 1923. That was because of the copyright cutoff, but we are working on adding new material as that copyright date extends as we go forward in time. So keep checking back. You'll probably find some new stuff. And I wanted to also talk about our archives catalog, which is our online catalog for unpublished material. That includes letters, diaries, maps, business records, those kinds of things. And Kansas Memory, which is our online digital repository. That is the site of all of our digitized material. I think we have now over 700,000 individual images and items digitized and made available online. That includes, again, photographs, maps, biennial reports from the state. We have photographed items from the museum, from archaeology. So it is a terrific resource. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about all of these as we go forward, but that's a quick overview of some things that you can find online at kshs.org and kansasmemory.org. So ancestry.com. This is going to be for our Kansas residents. You can access it with your driver's license if you go through our website, and we do offer free access to Kansas materials that have come from our collections and that are available online. Now, if you're not in Kansas, you can access that by creating and subscribing to ancestry.com. Probably shouldn't say this, but sometimes they have free trials. If you need to use that, just keep that in the back of your mind. On ancestry.com, as you can see on the screen, there are several pieces of material that can help you with your genealogy research. Obviously, Kansas census lists are going to be huge. We kept a census in Kansas from 1855, so that was territorial Kansas, up to 1925. Now, those of you who know about the 1890 census, you may be thinking, 1885 and 1895 can somewhat complement that. So fantastic resource. For those who don't know, the 1890 census was largely destroyed in a fire. So if your ancestor was in Kansas during that time, you might be in luck. We have the census records surrounding that. The Kansas census records reflect usually what the federal census record would have collected, the sometimes race, names of the people, ages, where they're from, where they were born. There is a full listing of the Kansas census records, the details of what was collected available on our website on kshs.org. We also have Kansas birth, marriage, and death records available on Ancestry. It is not all inclusive, but you will find a smattering of things. And I'll talk more about vital records here in a minute. And we'll have some Kansas military records. We have really been pushing to get our bounty claim records from World War I online, but that is kind of a project down the line, but you can still access them in person here. Immigration and immigration records. Sometimes city directories are available online, dictionaries, encyclopedias, reference materials, maps, atlases. Ancestry.com really is a goldmine for our materials, and we are continually adding to that. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but just know that if you have not yet looked on Ancestry.com for Kansas materials, that is something that you're going to want to explore. You'll go to Ancestry.com, go to search, and then you'll drop down and narrow it down by Kansas to see all of our resources. So vital records. Vital records are incredibly important for genealogy material or genealogy research. They are official government records. And in Kansas, at least, we have somewhat of a strong vital records collection. Most vital records, birth and death, were mandated to be kept at the state level in 1911. Marriage was 1913. Divorce, unfortunately, was in the 1950s. So if you need a vital record after any of those dates, you'll need to reach out to the Kansas Office of Vital Statistics. If you would like to research earlier than that, you can access Kansas vital records through our county records. They were kept at the county level before those dates. So you will need to either reach out to us or reach out to the particular county in which your Kansas ancestor lived to access those vital records. And what we can learn from vital records is pretty astounding. And since I can't see my notes, give me just a second. I'm going to go to the paper source here so that I can read aloud for you. Okay, so vital records. Not all 105 counties are going to be represented in the vital records that we hold at the state archives. Before it was mandated that they be kept, sometimes the counties just didn't keep them, or they didn't send them to us, or what have you, but we do still have a very strong showing of county vital records. And that can include birth information. Now, what can you find from a birth record? You can find the child's name, obviously, you hope, the date of birth, the place of birth, sometimes the parents' names, and even, well, I should say the parents' names plus sometimes the mother's maiden name, which can be particularly important, the parents' place of birth in some instances, and the place of residence if it's different than the place where the birth happened. So that's an incredibly useful resource. Marriage records will include anything from the names of the bride and the groom, obviously the date and place, but if the bride or groom was underage, and I believe in Kansas that was 16 most of the time, it may also include the parents' names. So that's worth looking at. Death records, name of the deceased, obviously, reason for the season, their death date, their place of death, cause of death in some instances, age of death, possibly their occupation, their place of birth, names of their parents and their parents' place of birth, name of their spouse, name of the person giving the information. That is fantastic if you're doing kind of that sideways research, if you're trying to find the sibling by looking at the, the parent or the uncle or what have you. And occasionally race is listed in some records as well. So what we're trying to look at when we do these vital records is that you're trying to track down this person's official life. These are records that you're going to use for DAR applications. They're records you're going to use for the Mayflower applications if you're trying to prove genealogy. If you need to we get a lot of people who come in and want to get citizenship in another country. Italy is a big one because they accept several generations past based on one ancestor. So you may be looking in immigration records, naturalization records, and all of this will be included in those vital records. Again, on the screen, you can see that records can also include probate records, district court records, cemetery records, and much more. Now, these vital records and other county records are available on microfilm in our research room. If you are a Kansas resident, you can ask to have those materials sent to your local public library by interlibrary loan. If you are outside of Kansas, you would either have to come in or you would have to ask our reference staff to access that material for you. You need to know the place and the date. But these are a fantastic resource. All right, so yes, to access county records, to see a list of what we have, you need to go to kshs.org, research, it's a drop-down menu, and then click on county records. On the screen, you will see an example of how the records are laid out. Each of the counties that we hold records for will be listed. If you know your ancestors got married in, say, Cherokee County, you're going to click on Cherokee and see if we have records, marriage records for that county in particular. Like I said, if we don't have it, always reach out to the county district court clerk or the city, and they may still retain some of those early records as well. If it's after 1911, 1913, or 1951 in the case of divorce, you'll need to reach out to the Kansas Office of Vital Statistics. And I am sorry if I am talking very quickly. We have a lot of material to cover, and I want to make sure that we leave enough time for questions in the end because I feel that that's going to be the most helpful for you guys. All right, now I've already kind of talked about newspapers. I went out of order a little bit, but we also have, in addition to the newspapers we have on newspapers.com, we have a full collection of Kansas newspapers. Not completely all-inclusive, but we have been actively collecting these papers for almost 150 years. So if there was a paper published in Kansas, there's a really strong chance that we hold it in our records. And you can discover that by going to kshs.org, research, and newspapers. And you can type in either the city of publication, the word in the title of the paper header, not of the article or the person that you're searching for, the name of the paper, like Kansas City Star, Topeka Tribune, for example. You can narrow it down by years. And then when you finish putting in your fields, you click search, and then it will have a list appear of newspapers that are available on microfilm or on newspapers.com through the site. And then you can either reach out to our reference staff to access the papers. If you live in Kansas, you can have the paper on microfilm interlibrary loaned to you, or sometimes some of the other papers will be online in other places. But the newspaper research for genealogy is definitely not something you want to overlook. Even some of the older papers, I'm not sure there just wasn't a lot going on, or if it was just a way to communicate with people like, hey, what's going on in town, what's going on in the county. But don't just look for one particular thing, like a marriage record, for instance. Don't just say, oh, well, they didn't post an announcement that X and Y were married on X date. No, you need to look in like the gossip pages. You need to look in the society updates columns, because a lot of the times in the old papers, they would just have a list of, so-and-so was visiting XYZ, so-and-so just opened a store, so-and-so almost got ran over on Main Street. You could always find some kind of reference, especially in the smaller town papers, if you look hard enough and long enough. And if your ancestor happened to be particularly, flamboyant, or they did something interesting, like they got arrested, or, you know, they you know, complained to the judge a lot about someone's cat getting into their garbage, you know, those will probably appear in these papers. I'm just making this stuff up, but you get a sense of, you know, how you can go about looking at these resources. The newspapers that we see today with the official announcements, with the wedding pages, that's not how they appeared back in the day. In 1918, those papers look very different than 2018. So just keep that in mind when you're researching. And so because Kansas has such a strong collection of Kansas newspapers, that if you're doing genealogy research for your Kansas ancestor, hopefully somewhere in those papers they will be there. And I should also say, on newspapers.com, our papers are all searchable. So if you're looking for an ancestor's obituary, all you need to do is, in the search bar, type in their name and the date, and hopefully it will pop up, so you don't have to be, you know, scrolling through pages and pages of papers. And I can definitely talk more about that if anybody has any questions. There are some tips and tricks to accessing newspapers.com and making it work for you instead of you working for it. So moving on, archives catalog. This is our unpublished materials catalog. So like I said, manuscript collections, business records, church records, family histories, sometimes letters, diaries, maps, photographs, all of that kind of fun stuff. So it is keyword searchable. I do have a picture on the screen of the catalog homepage. So what I always suggest doing is, when you're searching, keep it simple. This is not Google. It does not have this high processing metadata thing going on that Google has. You need to keep it really, really simple. Or, you know, if you start putting in too much information, the system's just going to either pull everything it can find with those keywords, or it's going to just get too in the weeds and won't pull up anything at all. So for example, if I was looking for my ancestors, I would put in, say, the name of my grandfather in the keyword search. I would search for, you know, Otis Johnson, and then I might click, do you have photographs of Otis Johnson? I would narrow it down under material type to photographs. So keyword and material type, click search, which you can't see on the bottom of this screen, but it is there, I promise. And then I would see if there is anything listed in the catalog. Now, at the Kansas State Archives, we do practice more product, less process, which means we don't necessarily index all items on the, like at the item level. We might just do like the folder level, like photos of Jefferson County, for instance. So you might have to do a little bit of digging to get into what is actually in the record. And that's when our reference staff comes into play. You can reach out to us and we can dig in the records for you, or you can come in and do research. And because of Kansas Memory, our online digital repository, many of our items are actually already digitized and available online. So if they are online, that's excellent for you. It means you don't have to come in or reach out to us. You can just click on the link that takes you to Kansas Memory, and then you can flip through all of the records on there. You can also narrow down the item in the catalog by creator. For instance, if you're doing research on railroads, you could type in Atchison, Topeka, and click search, and you can find all of the items in our catalog that are related to the Atchison, Topeka Railroad collection. You can also narrow it down by the material type. If you want to see all of the photographs for Jefferson County, you know, you type in Jefferson, click on photograph, click search, and it'll take you right there. So again, wonderful resource. And Kansas Memory, as I've talked about now a couple of times, online digital repository, I do need to update that stat. It is 700,000 images, not 500,000. We have been very busy adding things to the website, but you can see it's kansasmemory.org. It is keyword searchable, just like in the archives catalog. So you would type in, for instance, Otis Johnson, and click search, see if there's anything already digitized related to Mr. Johnson. You can also go to our blog on that page. You see just at the top, it says blog. We try to update it about once every quarter, and it's just a fun little escape into different facets of Kansas history or whatever it is that we're interested in right now. I think we have one on newspapers up currently, and they're all written by staff. So you can just get a sense of what our staff is working on, what piques our interests, and it's a promotional tool for us to highlight some of the resources that we have on Kansas Memory. And You can also go to that large map in the middle of the image. If you click on any of these counties, I can't do it because this is just an image, but if you were to click on the name of the county, it would take you to all the items that we have digitized for that county and available online now. So you can see everything related, for instance, to Douglas County or Shawnee County, and that could be maps, letters, diaries, photographs, government records, you name it. So it is a wonderful resource. We love playing around on this just to see kind of the breadth and scope of our collections, because it really is just an all-inclusive look on the types of things that we collect and the types of things that we hold. And you can see my mouse hovering over these colorful bars on the left: agriculture, built environment, business and industry, etc. If you click on those plus signs, it will enlarge to menus for each of these individual facets. So if you were doing research on, say, military records in Kansas, you could click on the plus, and then you could narrow the items down by, conflict or soldiers or what have you, people. You could research different ethnic groups coming in, etc. So it's a great way to kind of go into the research from different directions. On the right-hand side of the page, you can also see the login. You can create a free login, a username and password, to create what we call a book bag, so that if you are researching particular topic, particular people, you can create an individual book bag for each person or topic, and everything you find, you can just pop right into those book bags. It's an easy way of staying organized while you're doing research. So fantastic resource. I definitely recommend checking out Kansas Memory. And just from a very meta perspective, being able to have these resources available to do research online has really expanded everyone's understanding of the diverse history of the state. So it is an excellent resource, not just for genealogy, but for preservation, for having a copy of all the things that we've now digitized, and to help researchers who can't necessarily come in person. So can't say enough good things about Kansas Memory, and it will be updated soon. We're actually going to get a whole new layout. I don't know when it's happening, but it is in the works, so keep checking back. And here is an example on our, I'm just checking the time here, still pretty good. This is another catalog. This is our Atlas catalog. It is for our published materials. Now, for genealogy research, this probably could be one of the best resources for you. And you can see at the top, topekalibraries.info, search, funny characters there. What I suggest doing, Google Atlas Topeka. It should pop right up. And we have several links in different places on our website, kshs.org, as well, that will lead you to this catalog. The reason it's a little bit funny is it is a shared catalog with a university here in town, and a couple other entities. So when you are searching for it to look at our stuff, you have to go into the Kansas History Society catalog, and that will be on a list on the page. And you'll see in the catalog records, yes, it is owned by us. You would have to contact us to view the items. But to give you a sense of some of the things that you would find in Atlas, you'll see family histories, you will see histories of the counties, you'll see collected newspaper clippings about various topics. Here are a few new items that we have added in the last year or so. Family stories of Norton County, Kansas, tales of the clan, of the Clonch clan, I should specify that. Allied families, Dr. Michael Vincent and Allied families. Gives you a sense, our Treaster family in America. You never know what you're going to find when you go into Atlas. Atlas is going to be the home of our cemetery inscription books. It will be the home of, let me see, I have a better, I can't see my notes. There will be some church records. There will also be some records from outside of the state of Kansas. We did have a much stronger collecting policy for our published materials back in the day. So we have genealogy histories, family histories for, I think, almost all of the states, all 50 states. We have the Lila Day Monroe collection of pioneer stories. We have city histories, we have telephone, city and farm directories, we have yearbooks, school records, We have a very nice cookbook collection. So really anything and everything that you can think of that would be published in book form or in a pamphlet or a broadside, for advertising something, then that would be found in the Atlas card or the Atlas catalog online for the published materials. Definitely worth exploring. Again, keep the keyword search simple. Look for Otis Johnson, look for Norton County, look for the title of the book if you already know it, look by the author of the book. Don't type in, show me all of the records related to my ancestors, and don't do that. Do it by keyword search. All right. We are going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to pull up more paper notes here. Our house history checklist. If I had a handout, it would be this, but you can access it online. So that's kshs.org and go to research and places. And again, we can talk about all that later, or I can put a link in the chat even to help you access that, but everything is found through kshs.org. The house history is a little bit, it seems a little bit off the topic for genealogy because you're thinking, well, I really want just birth records or marriage records. How else am I going to prove that, my ancestor was in a particular place or they were doing a particular thing? Well, land records, house records, deed records, all of these are incredibly important for doing genealogy because you never know when your ancestor is going to appear in land ownership that helps you say, yes, actually they did live in Jefferson County in 1886 and I have the record, so now I know exactly where to go to find the rest of the family that may have been living with them, for instance. Kansas is a public domain state, which means that the federal government sold or gave away Kansas land. The transfer of land from the federal government to the first private owner by purchase, homestead, that kind of thing would be found in the tract books, which we hold at the Kansas Historical Society. They would include a description of the tract, the number of acres, the rate, the monetary rate per acre, if applicable, the purchase amount, the name of the purchaser, the date of sale, etc., etc. So what you're really trying to do in genealogy is put your people in a particular time and place so that you can confirm those, details. And if there are any other land transactions after the original purchase from the government, those would be found in the Register of Deeds office for each county. So if you're trying to track a plot of land that has been sold, if you're trying to track a building that has changed hands, you'll want to go to the Register of Deeds office in the particular county in which it happened. We have some microfilm deed records as part of our county history collection, those vital records I was talking about earlier. We will have some deed records listed in those as well, available on microfilm in our research room. Plat maps are mostly available online through Kansas Memory. Whatever we have for a particular county will be reflected there. So you would go just click on the county on that map on the front page and then go to that left-hand facet that says type of material and just click on map and you'll be able to see all the plat maps that we hold in our archive. And you can find anything from land ownership to town layout, city layout. Plat maps can be really helpful for tracing the movement of your ancestors over time. If you have a plat map from 1885 to 1901 to 1917, etc. It's like, wow, they own that same land for 30 years. That's fantastic. And you'll see their name on there. Sometimes if you look around them, you might see that, maybe the uncle owns land somewhere else. Maybe the sibling owns land just a couple plots over. So you can really start to build these communities of people through the plat maps. Sanborn maps are particularly interesting. And I put it on here, not because we have a strong collection of Sanborn maps, but because they are all digitized and available online through the Library of Congress. But Sanborn maps were basically early fire insurance maps that would list changes in the building over time, like if someone added a balcony, if someone added a parking structure, so on and so forth. But they may also reflect the owner of the building. So they can be a good tool to research, a person's activities over time. City directories, as I've said before, city, farm, telephone directories, helps you figure out where in town they lived, if they ran a business. We do have those available on paper in our research room. Some of them are also available online at ancestry.com and others are available on microfilm in the research room. Like I've said before, we are in the Kansas Historical Society, we have the State Historic Preservation Office. So if there is an historic place that you are interested in researching, we do have the Kansas Historical Records Index, KHRI, if I'm remembering that correctly. I'm sorry, it's not my department, but you can search by like address or town to see historical buildings in particular parts of Kansas. We also have information on land ownership. We have we have Kansas atlases. We have index to county histories in Andreas's History of Kansas. Let's see else. Sorry, I'm the weakest at land records. They're a great resource, but man, are they complicated. Original maps that show land ownership can also be found in our card catalogs here in the room. So another good reason to contact our reference staff to make sure that you're not missing anything. Really anything and everything that you can think of for land records, we would probably have as the state archives. And again, great genealogy research tools to be able to see who lived on the land, who lived near them on the land, and basically what improvements they were doing, their activities and so on and so forth. For example, if you're trying to find the name of a daughter for a particular person and you find, the father, he's got a plot of land, you might find that maybe later on she's homesteading the next plot over, for example, and you think, I don't know if there's a Matilda in the family. Well, you start to draw the lines there. Like I said, I'm not a genealogist, but I've seen it work. It's magic when it does work. We also have some wonderful local history resources on our website and in our research room. William Allen White famously said that it happens first in Kansas, and I like to think that our websites are a bit of a first because they do offer so much material online for you to do your research. But Kansapedia is particularly cool because it has several small articles about a variety of different topics in Kansas history. So ethnic groups in Kansas, like Germans who moved here from Russia, or Irish immigrants, or the early wheat processing industry, anything and everything that you can think of, people, places, topics, ideas, you can find that in Kansapedia. So part of the process of genealogy, right, is not just finding the records, it's about building lives for the people that you're trying to find. And it's about contextualizing their lives so that you can understand the choices that they would have made, so that you understand where to go to find the records. If you know that they're interested in farming, you're going to look for the land records that they're making. If they're, running a business in a town, where to start to go to find those records, or, reach out to the Register of Deeds for the business, or the Secretary of State records for the business filings. So you're not only understanding how they live their lives, but you're getting a better sense of where to go to look if you ever run into a dead end, or you need to provide a little bit more background information for your genealogy resource. So being aware of history and why people made the decisions that they did based on outside historical factors is something that you're going to find through these Kansapedia articles, and also through the Kansas Historical Quarterly, which is largely available online through our website. It is a fantastic research resource. And we have, I can't remember when they started publishing it, turn of the century, I think, last century, but you can find a variety of digitized articles about every topic in Kansas history that you can think of. Disease on the plains, immigration, grave robbing, you name it. But those are available online for the most part on our website as well. Again, you might find your ancestor in them directly talking about something that they did, but more likely you're contextualizing the lives that they would have led and the historical circumstances that would have compelled them to make decisions that you are now tracing the records of. That got very complicated very fast, but hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say. We also have in the room here, or not in the room, I should say, in the agency, we are the home to the Kansas Museum of History. It is currently closed for renovation, but we hope to have it open next year. We invite everybody to come out and come see our wonderful new museum with our reinterpreted exhibits. And we're going to highlight some different pieces of the collection and really show off the pieces that we hold here at the Kansas Historical Society that reflect the diversity and wonderful culture that is the state of Kansas. So everybody come out to the Kansas Museum of History when it opens. But in the meantime, we do have a catalog online of material that we hold in the museum. So you can do research on, I'm probably not as well versed in how to do genealogy through objects, but I'm sure it's possible. Just to let you know that that catalog does exist to go through some of those sources. Oof, we're at the end almost already. That's perfect. Okay, we got 15 minutes. Tips and tricks. Don't panic. Please don't panic. Genealogy is stressful, but it's also fun. It's a hobby. It's, enjoy it, get out there. Try to really delve into the depths of what your ancestors were doing. You're here because you want to have fun. It's, it is fun when you're successful. Take notes, make sure you're constantly tracing your, keeping your breadcrumbs in a line. You're tracing your steps so that you know where things come from. Cite your sources, so important. Stay organized, make a file folder, create folders on your desktop, whatever it takes. Ask questions, ask them of me, ask them of other archivists, ask them of your reference staff, ask at your local public library, whatever it takes. Follow leads. If you think that maybe someone else in the family owned that plot of land right next to them, go chase after that person and see if you can start making those connections. Question everything. Just because it looks like it might be the right person doesn't mean that it always is. A lot of names get spelled wrong. A lot of names get spelled the same, even though they're not related. Talk to family and friends. Find out what your family stories are, especially if you get stuck. Maybe grandma, grandpa, uncle, aunt, cousins, maybe they've heard something that can help start you on a different path so that you can kind of circuitously make your way back around. And when you're in doubt, Google it. I cannot tell you as a reference librarian how much Google means to me, because they have a wonderful search engine that you can sometimes use to find things you wouldn't have otherwise considered. And here is the links page. It is also, I believe, the final page, kshs.org. I'm going to keep saying it because hopefully everybody will remember it. That is our homepage. kansasmemory.org. That's our online digital repository. Our reference staff can be reached through kshs.reference@ks.gov. And I can be reached at lauren.gray@ks.gov, at least until the middle of next month. So I am going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you all for sticking with me during this. And I wish everyone well. Please ask me questions if you do. How do I stop sharing? Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. We do have some questions for you. So to get started, the first one is, what homestead records are available?
So homestead records, to my knowledge, are actually going to be held at the federal level through the Bureau of Land Management. And I think they're in the process of digitizing them. So I would definitely reach out to the federal level first.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. So does the archives hold any records of state hospitals for the insane?
Yes, we hold we hold several, and you can find those through our catalog. Please note that some of them are going to be really restricted. We might, just by Kansas law, we might be able to tell you if a person was committed to a hospital, but we may not be able to tell you what the diagnosis was. Those kind of things, they are protected by Kansas law. But yes, we do hold Topeka State Hospital records, Winfield, and several others.
Great, thank you. Is there a list of which newspapers were in each county?
Excellent question. So if you go to that index screen for the newspapers, you can just organize it by county and click on that. It won't show you everything that was published, but it will show you what we have for those counties. And I bet if you Googled it, you could probably get a full list on Wikipedia of all of the newspapers that we know of that were published in a particular county.
Thank you. And for the next one, is there any information available within the archives on Kansas National Guard members?
Yes, maybe. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up my notes. All right. All right, so maybe not National Guard since it is federal, but for our military records, you're going to find stuff from the Civil War, including muster rolls, militia rolls for the Kansas Volunteer Regiments. You're going to find Grand Army of the Republic records here, including the necrology list and different rosters of members for different years. From the Indian campaigns, you will find microfilm that's been copied from the National Archives. You're going to find for the Spanish-American War, the 12th biennial report of the Adjutant General of the state of Kansas, that includes rosters and unit histories and other things. For World War I, you're going to find those bounty claim records, which were basically pension records that Kansas soldiers filed to get a pension after their service, and that can include anything from a physical description of the person to what their service might have looked like if they fought in any of the big campaigns. Sometimes it'll include a discharge record. We do hold for World War II honor rolls for some of the counties. We don't have the selective service records, but those are held at NORA, the National Archives. But we do have the selective service number if you need that, if it was a Kansan. And we also have different resources for veterans through GAR and the USWV.
Great, thank you. So for our next one, Christy asks, it appears that a lot of the records that I might need are on microfilm. She's out of state, so she's not able to visit. So she was wondering what's the status of digitizing the microfilmed records so that they can be accessed remotely.
So Christy, good question. The best answer I can give you for that in terms of the digitizing is that we kind of take things on a collection by collection basis. We have a lot of the material that is being put up on Ancestry in terms of like the vital records and stuff like that. My suggestion would be if you're doing research, maybe not wait for the digitization. There are a few ways you can start to access those without, having to rely on them being put online. You can contact our reference staff, kshs.reference@ks.gov, or you can call us and you can ask our reference librarian to go into those materials and research for you. If you don't really know the place or the date, then you can reach out to a private researcher, and we do have some that we recommend. It's listed on our website, and you can reach out to them. They do charge a fee, and you can talk with one of them about going into the records and doing a really deep dive for you. If you know there's a reel that you want, and you probably want the whole reel, for instance, you can get either a digitized copy of a microfilm reel, or you can get a physical copy duplicated of the microfilm reel. And I believe those start at $60, but then you would be able to take that reel to your local public library. You would own it at that point, and you could do all the research you want for as long as you wanted. Those are probably, I would suggest, the routes you could take if you don't want to wait for things to be digitized.
Thank you. And then we have a question. Do you have a list of farmers that lost their farms due to the grasshopper plague, 1874?
Wow, that's specific.
It is.
I would say Atlas would be the place you'd want to go for that. The published works catalog, I would suggest typing in grasshoppers and seeing what resources come back, because we've had a lot of people, just local historians, working on really specific topics like that and compiling the data. I don't know if a resource like that exists at this time. It might, but that would definitely be, if it doesn't, that's a larger research question that could be really fun to dive into.
Yeah, thank you. Does your website support Zotero?
I'm sorry, I don't even know what that is.
Oh, you're good.
I don't know what Zotero is, but it
yeah,
doesn't, I would say, because
okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So Leslie asks, what are your best resources for Swedish ancestors in Kansas? It says that they lived in McPherson County, and she's researching how they ended up there. So wondering where she might start.
Sure. So, hi. There are newspapers from McPherson, and there is a very strong, I don't know how much research you've done, but there is a very strong Swedish American community that lives there today. So if you haven't reached out, especially to the local public library in Lindsborg, to Bethany College in Lindsborg, that would definitely be a good resource for you. We also have newspapers, both in English and in Swedish, in the collections that could help you get started on your research. I'm not sure how many of those are available online. You could also look in the vital records for McPherson County. You could do a search in Atlas for any material that's been written about the early Swedish immigrants. There's probably a lot. It's a very popular topic. And you could also go to our archives catalog, which is the unpublished materials catalog, and type in McPherson or Lindsborg or the name of your people, etc. And we do have quite a bit from that area. So chances are you'll find something. You can also go to Kansapedia to read about Swedish immigration to the United States. And Sweden, in particular, if you want to go back even farther to the country of Sweden, has a wonderful amount of material already available online, church records, which would have been, the early vital records, harbor listings. I just spilled my water. Lovely. And other things that can help you get started with your research. Yeah, doing Swedish genealogy can be a little bit challenging because of the language, but there are definitely several resources at the archives and online elsewhere for Swedish sources.
Thank you.
Yep.
So we have time for a couple more. So someone is asking about resources available specifically for Franklin County. Wondering if you might be able to speak on that.
Sure. So my first suggestion would be to, if you want something immediate, go to Kansas Memory, click on Franklin on that big map on the front page and see what we've already digitized. Go to the Atlas Published Works catalog, type in Franklin County. You'll probably see anything from local histories, different city histories for Franklin, probably cemetery inscriptions from the county. The unpublished works catalog, the archives catalog, would have maps, photographs. If you are local or you want to reach out to our reference staff, the card catalogs would also hold material on Franklin County and different people who live there.
So Sally says, I understand that death records are not considered public. What suggestions do you have for substitutes? I'm trying to find someone's parents.
So it depends on the time. If I'm not sure what the cutoff is on privacy in Kansas, since most of our genealogists are working kind of like way back, but you can certainly access any of the death records in our facility. They are not restricted. For any workarounds, if it's something you're not able to get, I would suggest looking at the newspapers to see like a death listing. That might be one of those instances where if someone died and you found their obituary, they may list it as a predeceased person, or if they don't, look at the siblings and try to go after the siblings if they have them, or maybe grandchildren, and try to just keep going back. Sometimes genealogy is not a straight path, but you do have to go around with different ancestors to find the people that you really want. Cemetery, if you know where they're buried, find cemetery inscriptions. It's possible they were buried in the same place, especially, the further you go back, the more communities tend to live and die together. That's what I can think of off the top. And also, this is for everybody, but there are so many online resources for how to do genealogy. So go to YouTube, just Google, how to get started with genealogy, and that will start, that will help you get some ideas for how to get going.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll do one more. But before I ask that question, I just wanted to mention, if we don't get to your question, or if you have something that comes up after today's program, feel free to send us an email. It's genealogy@acpl.info. So I'll stick that in the chat. And then also, if you'd like a copy of the chat from today's Zoom program, send us an email there as well, and we will get that to you. So for our last question, somebody asks, both grandfathers worked short-term for the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad, and they're wondering where to start searching to find records like that about dates or positions that those grandfathers held the jobs on the railroad.
Yeah, we have the Atchison Topeka company was so big that it's not held by any one archive. It's actually spread across the United States, down in the Southwest and here and where have you. For anybody who worked on the railroad or at the railroad in, I want to say 1931. I can't remember the date quite off the top of my head, but they did what's called a prior service record based on that date. So if you think your person worked there at that time, we do have prior service records available online through Ancestry, and that'll give you it's basically an index card detailing the specifics of their employment. There are papers that correspond to that as well if you find your person, and those are not digitized and they're available here. Otherwise, to do a general search in the Atchison Topeka records outside of the I'm like a cat. I get distracted every time a chat thing pops up. Don't stop chatting on there, but I can't stop reading it. Go to the archives catalog, and under creator, you're going to type in Atchison, Topeka. If you click search, you'll get like 30,000 different records related to Atchison, Topeka. We don't have a ton of genealogy stuff specifically. You kind of have to dig for it to look in these Santa Fe magazines that the company published. It just depends on what they were doing and what they were involved in. We have some administrative records. Those prior service records are going to be a great place to start. It is such a vast collection that it really just might take some digging to find where they were and what they were doing. We have payroll records as well. A lot of places have payroll records, which are basically just, someone was paid on X date in X year and what they were paid. But those are not indexed. They are volumes this big, stacked this high. So it's a matter of, just flipping page by page.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Again, I just wanted to mention, anybody who would like a copy of the chat, or if you have any follow-up questions, please send us an email at genealogy@acpl.info or acpl.info. Sorry, distracted. But thank you again, Lauren, very much for your time and for presenting today. We really appreciate it. And thank you for providing all of this really great knowledge. So have a good day.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. Please, everybody, don't hesitate to reach out to the reference staff here at the Historical Society. We are always happy to help answer your genealogy questions or any other history related questions.
Thank you. Bye-bye.